So I challenged my principal. I said, no matter what you and I think about Black Lives Matter being on the left, being on the right, the thing is, if I go into that classroom and I ask all 25 of those kids, give me a 2-paragraph paper. What does Black Lives Matter stand for? I'm going to get at least 20 different responses. And so if I come up to you and I say, Lee, and I got my fist up and I say, I'm down with the cause. Black Lives Matter. I'm down with it. Let's go. Then Brian's thinking, well, what does that mean?
Luke Grimm, Brian Perry, welcome to the Dad Hat. How goes it?
Doing pretty good, man. How's life on your end?
It's going well. It's going very well. How are you, Brian?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having us here.
Man, glad to have you guys. I've been taking a look at y'all's website, these16things.com. Excellent. You guys got some great information for parents and young people as well.
Thank you.
So, Luke, would you mind giving a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm 43, married with 8 kids. That's like bigger than 7, but not quite 9. Like you need both hands for that one. Family, we live on the south side of Indianapolis. I'm a high school teacher. I'm in my 6th year teaching government economics. And before I was teaching, I was in the active duty Army for 20 years. So I did satellite communications, been around, done some things, stories upon stories there. But yeah, I settled down to Indianapolis. And my buddy here, Brian, has pulled me into this venture of his. And I'm grateful for it. But yeah, we are now Hoosiers, Indiana Hoosiers.
All right. Brian, how about you?
So I also live here. Luke said he's south side of Indianapolis. I'm a little further south, but just south of Indy. And I think Luke has way too many kids. So I only have 7, not 8. That's ridiculous. And I have my own business. I'm a painter. We do a lot of painting, pressure washing, window washing, stuff like that here. And just into sports and hanging out with the kids and going to church.
Down home. I love it. I have one. We're doing our best to make some more. Excited about that. Got a 2-year-old. It's my first go at it, obviously. And kind of what inspired me a little bit to start the Dad Hat. Try to interview some parents and fathers from all walks of life. So you guys have 15 kids between you, and they're all homeschooled. Is that correct?
That is. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. You got this 2-month-old, Brian. Are you homeschooling your 2-month-old?
That's your 1-month-old. But so I guess they're not all homeschooled. They will be, but all the ones that have hit kindergarten at least are homeschooled.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Brian, but we have not always homeschooled. We have done public school off and on, but we are dedicated homeschoolers now.
So that's interesting. Luke, you said you teach a senior or 12th grade economics government class. What makes you homeschool instead of sending them to the school that you teach at?
Yeah, fantastic question. When I was in the Army and I was getting out, I knew I wanted to be an instructor, a teacher, a professor, somewhere in there, maybe a principal one day. And I knew my passion was government and civics. So I knew that's where I was going. But as I have been inside public education, forget what we've seen in the news, as I personally have been inside public education, I've had to go toe to toe with other teachers, faculty, administrators that want to push an agenda. And it doesn't matter if it's left or right. I have stories of both. You don't hear a lot in the news about people on the right pushing an agenda, but that happens as well. Not as often, but it doesn't belong either. And so every time this happens, I'm wondering, whose role is it to teach this stuff? You know, is it the parents' role? Because it's gone beyond math and English. It is now morals and values. And no one teacher can possibly teach every side of every moral and value and make every parent happy.
Yeah. So where do values come from? Where do you feel like they should come from?
Yeah. So this is actually a great question. Most people would say that their morals and values are going to come from their family, passed down, and their experiences. The problem with that is a lot of our families had bad morals. There's something with our family that we could not defend. Just all you have to do is introduce me to them and I'll find something, because you could find it in ours. So saying that morals and values coming from family isn't going to cut it. And if it comes from our experiences, well, living in Indianapolis and somebody living in Nigeria will have different experiences. So whose values are right? So values got to come from somewhere, some kind of a truth. So is truth objective or subjective? Because if it's subjectively, that means whatever's true for you is true for you. Therefore, whatever's true for me is true for me. We get to go about our lives and have these make-believe truths. So I believe that truth is objective. And Brian and I, being Christians, I'm going to lean upon Jesus, but not just the Bible, because the Bible is, at the end of the day, just a book. You can't use just a book to find your truth either. So I don't know if that's too long of an answer, but for me, God and Jesus has objective truth for me to fall back on.
Excellent answer. Excellent. Brian, how do you feel about that?
I agree with everything there. We have to look back at the Bible and say, see what that says about a lot of different things. We can't look at today's culture and say, well, everybody nowadays thinks that this is correct. And you can use any example in there. But we can't look at that, because Luke points out to this fact a lot about, look back at past cultures and say, at one point they thought slavery was okay. Clearly it's not. But if you lived back then, you would have thought that it's at least okay. Maybe you didn't have a slave, but I guess, and not every single person did, but a lot of people did think that's okay. So can we look at things now that people are saying, well, that's all right, because the majority of people think it's okay now. And we have to look at that and say, but is it actually okay? Like you said, there is truth, and we can't just say, well, that's our truth. We have to find out what is the actual truth. So I agree with what he said.
Yeah, it sounds like you might be describing a little bit of critical thinking. I mean, I believe it's really important that we think about what we're listening to, we think about what we are ingesting, and understanding for ourselves and having original thoughts to decide, is this real? Is it true? Do I want to put this in my belief system? Do I want to put it in my day-to-day strategy every single day? Or is it something that might be? It's hard, but nobody said it was going to be easy, right?
It's not. And your 2-year-old, this is going to be fun for you. Your 2-year-old will one day be 8 and have some crazy idea. Here we go. Your 8-year-old, soon to be 8-year-old, will you'll look in the kitchen, and I don't know your kiddo's name, but we'll say Billy, and there's Billy opening the fridge door, reaching for that beer. And you're going to stop Billy. But are you going to stop Billy because the law says he has to be 21? Is that really the reason? Or are you going to stop Billy because there's an issue with that? There's a value. I don't want my young 8-year-old drinking. Why not? So the point of that is we all have values of some sort, and they're eventually going to collide. And if we can't back up what we believe in, man, our cornerstone's going to crumble when we meet somebody that can challenge us.
100%. I think you said it right, or described it correctly. If you only go with, it's the law, then your thinking stops right there. And I think it needs further assessment. And I think society at large, or in America at least, could be accused of not thinking past, what we're told right away.
Wow.
So yeah, I hope that we can all hear what we're saying right now about critical thinking, for sure. So we're describing a little bit that we might not love where America is today, because we're not putting them in public schools, right? What are some of the problems you guys have with the modern world? Luke, I'll start with you.
Yeah. I feel like the modern world has a tendency to shut down conversation that is not acceptable. And here we go. Teaching government, we're talking about First Amendment. And most people, when you think about First Amendment, they think about religion and speech, as we should. 2020 protests, that came up. But we moved beyond restricted speech into compelled speech. So I had to explain to my 12th graders what that means, where in the last 5 or 6 years, we're moving in an area where you have to be forced to say certain things, or else you're in trouble. So we're talking about what are some problems with where we are, where we're going. I think that conversation and dialogue, if you and I disagree on something, I should be able to disagree without fear of getting canceled or getting kicked off of social media or losing my job. And I don't think we're there. I think people will kowtow to the loudest voice. And I think a lot of leadership lacks the spine to stand up to that loudest voice, which means a lot of businesses, I don't know what their values are anymore. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah. Brian, you have another take?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I obviously agree with that, but also I see a lot of really identity politics nowadays, where if you are a liberal, you have to think that climate change is going to kill us in the next 10, 20 years. Versus if you're a Republican, it's like, no big deal. We don't have to worry about the environment. And you can do that on 10, 20 different topics. And you just look at, the left has to think this way. And then, again, going back to what I said earlier, it's not every single person, but the majority of the left thinks one way, the majority of the right thinks another way. And they butt heads all the time instead of, again, having that rational conversation and say, hey, let's work this out. Because I bet when we talk, we're a lot closer than what we think.
Yeah. So couple things that we brought up so far. Most recently, Brian, you described side picking, which I love. When family starts debating and stuff, it's everybody wants to be on a team. And don't get me wrong, teamwork makes the dream work. All that stuff is good. But, shouldn't we all be Americans, or shouldn't we all be humans? That's what comes to mind when you speak like that, Brian. The other thing is identity politics. Huge story in the news all the time. We have people like Jordan Peterson speaking often about how, he doesn't have a voice, or he can't have a voice, and he's a clinician and a professor out of college because, the students have stormed the Capitol, if you will. And, that's a tough thing. On the other side of that, maybe the Republicans or the right side of the aisle, or whatever you want to say, is making too big of a deal on transgender and all of these things because it encroaches on on their values. So it seems like a cycle of fighting and side picking is what I'm trying to describe here. And how do we get out of that?
So, Leah, let me give you an example, and then I'll try to address that. I'll try. My last high school, George Floyd, Minneapolis, 2020, our principal, I won't name the school, our principal decided that Black Lives Matter must be inserted in every piece of curriculum. Every class. And me teaching government and economics, I'm like, well, I mean, government, sure, but maybe not the way you want me to. And economics, I don't know. So I challenged my principal. I said, no matter what you and I think about Black Lives Matter being on the left, being on the right, the thing is, if I go into that classroom and I ask all 25 of those kids, give me a 2-paragraph paper, what does Black Lives Matter stand for? I'm going to get at least 20 different responses. And so if I come up to you and I say, Lee, and I got my fist up and I say, I'm down with the cause. Black Lives Matter. I'm down with it. Let's go. Then Brian's thinking, well, what does that mean? And he automatically assumes I'm on the left. I'm a liberal. I'm white. So I must have white guilt. All these boxes are now checked. But if he asks me what I mean, I might say, well, I just think that, I think Black Lives Matter a little bit more than they've been in the past. We need to represent more. Brian's like, wait a minute. I agree with that too. But we wouldn't know unless we would pause and have a conversation. There could be 30 things BLM stands for. I could agree with 27 of them. But just because I disagree with 3, I'm all of a sudden the enemy. Can we just have a conversation? So I think, when a debate strikes up, instead of yelling, instead of just repeating points, we should wait. Why am I talking? We should wait and listen to what the other person has to say. I think that's really lacking. Listening.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
And then I think finding common ground, because picking a side doesn't just happen with politics. You can look at sports, you can look at just about anything. But, I go to a family member's house, let's say for a dinner with some extended family that may like other colleges or other professional teams. And let's say our politics are the same, but it seems like everybody wants to find what's our difference. So they want to then discuss, oh man, the Colts were terrible, the Bengals. And I use that because I have family that likes the Bengals. The Bengals are doing awesome this year and the Colts suck. You shouldn't, they're terrible. How can you be that fan? It's like, can we find some common ground and work on that? So I think finding that common ground and you can still have debates. You can still talk and work things out, but stop always looking for how somebody is different than you.
Okay. I like that. So would we say side picking or wanting to join a team is a part of human nature?
I don't know anybody that wants. I don't know anybody that wants to be on the losing side. Nobody truly wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror, and says, "Man, I can't wait to screw up today and be a loser." People want to be winners, and so that's where the phrase "bandwagon," I suppose, would come from. But I think picking sides is a natural thing. My opinion.
Yeah, I would attribute it to tribalism. I think that for how many ever 100,000s of years, when humans were just trying to survive, trying to, keep the group going, it's in our nature to, pick a team, pick a side. So I'm not sure that part is going away. I don't know if, how many years that's going to take for that to, be out of our value system, if you will, or our survival system, if you will. So,
you mentioned another topic. You're talking about Republicans and transgender. If we want to go there, I think that's a great topic. Do you want to go there?
Yeah. What's your hot take?
Well, we're talking about culture, right? Yep. We're talking about culture. And if I told you that, if I made a broad statement that I am a conservative and I stand with transgender youth, I would get stunned silence. People would try to, where does he belong? And rarely would people ask me, but eventually someone's got to say, how can you be both? I thought conservatives would not stand with transgender youth. And I would say, well, I bet a lot do, but if we could just have a conversation. Standing with the youth is one thing. Disagreeing with the policy is a whole nother thing. Can we talk about that? Well, okay, well, what about disagreeing with morals? And I think this is where we run up against issues. The 8-year-old pulling a beer out of the fridge. That is against the law because some lawmakers thought it was an immoral thing. That's what laws are. They're legislating morality. This is wrong, so this prevents it. Everyone legislates morality, but if you and I get our morality from way different places, I don't think we are ever, this is not you, Lee, in general, if you and I get our morality from different places, we're really going to struggle to come together on some of these things because we're not reading from the same playbook.
Oh, for sure. You're 100% right about that. That's, part of the reason why our producer, Nikki, would say he identifies as libertarian because he believes the government should stand for, freedom of the individual and, keeping the individuals the most free is the most important part of government. And I would say I agree. I don't like to put myself in any bucket. I don't left, right, up, down, none of it. I try to avoid side picking, if you will. But I think, as far as the government's concerned and their functionality, I think he's right. I think freedom is it should be at the top of the government's list. Now, so if I say that freedom is at the top of the list, does that mean that anybody can do anything? I would say there's a lot of people in the world that say no to that. Just like going into allowing your 5-year-old, 8-year-old to transition to another gender. I would, where do we draw the line? Where's the limit, Brian?
Yeah. So for libertarian, it's more so freedom until it harms someone else. So you can't harm anyone else. And it was freedom up until that point. And if we talk about some things that, I'm going to dive right into it because this is a hot topic. But if we look at abortion, my personal opinion, and I consider myself more of a libertarian than anything else, but it's freedom up until you're harming someone else, I consider that unborn baby a human being. So my personal opinion is that's harming someone else. If you look at the transgender thing, you could say, well, you're not harming a kid by letting an 8-year-old boy transition to a girl, start giving them hormone blockers, and then maybe in 8 years or so, get them through some medical procedures to make them what they want to be, or what people say, what they've always been. But my argument is, yeah, I do believe you are harming them. If you just look at some statistics on transgender suicide, and it's rough. We'll just say that. So it can be rough. I do believe it's harming. So when we go back to that, libertarianism, being a libertarian is freedom up until you're harming someone else. But I do believe the government should stay out of a lot more things than they are. They're involved in too much right now.
Interesting. Luke, you have anything to add or subtract from that?
Yeah, I do. As far as the government getting too involved, I'm with you and with Brian on this one. I think the government has grown so bloated and too powerful. Very, very quick story about this. The Department of Child Services. My daughter got in an accident. Kids were playing upstairs. She hit her head. She had to go to the ER. They had to open up her skull, pull off a blood clot that could have killed her within 3 hours. So when we got to the Riley Hospital in Indianapolis, who's waiting for us? A DCS worker. It's 4 a.m. A DCS worker is ready there, separating my wife and I to ask us what happened. 2 days later, she's giving my wife a drug test while my daughter's coming out of anesthesia. She's asking my 5-year-old through anesthesia, does your daddy touch you in your private parts? Do your parents hit you? She came in my house, gave me a drug test. So I gave her the business on this one. Gave me a drug test, took pictures of my sleeping kids. I'm thinking, I've worked in the education system for a while, and this is who you send somebody to? This is the house? There's nothing that I could do. And I asked her, what if I don't take a drug test? Well, the judge looks at it as a positive drug test. I said, okay, well, what if I was hopped up on meth, crack, cocaine, marijuana, all of it right now? What's that got to do with my kid being injured? She had no answer. And I'm thinking, I have to let her in my house. I have to let a government worker in my house do all of these things. And I have no power. I had no control. If I would have said no, I would risk losing my children over my kid having an accident. I felt really helpless underneath the thumb of the government that week.
As you should, in my opinion. So what's the solution? Is it separation of powers? Is it, giving more power to the state, to the local government? That's kind of the answer I hear.
Well, that's where we are now with Roe versus Wade, isn't it? Giving the power back to the states. I've tried to tell students, one party generally, I'm generally speaking, on the right, they tell you they believe in small limited government. And on the left, they'll tell you that, we need more government. But the problem is what the right will say is not always what the bills look like, what that they push up. It's not always how they vote. So I'm torn on that one. I think we need to be more careful every other November in who we're voting in. I think we need to actually look at them. I don't care if they have a D or an R. I think we need to actually go to their website and see what they've done. And if we vote people in that agree with you, that agree that we shouldn't be pumping millions and billions and trillions of dollars out there and just growing. The executive branch is the largest workforce in America. 2.5-ish million people, 2.5 million in the executive branch. That's insane. Who's paying their bills? We are. Let's
keep on government for a second. So Luke, you're well-spoken with government and well-read with government. I'm going to go into an idea from Austrian economics, time preference. So you mentioned a moment ago that, we should vote them in every 2 years, 4 years, that short time span. So I recently heard a debate about democracy versus, a monarchy or some other sort, where the democracy always fails, or democracy fails often because the regime changes too often. They only care about their 2 or 4 years. Therefore, they spend all the budget so the next regime can't do anything. Therefore, they, try to get votes just to win. it kind of contributes to, all I got to do is win scenario. Do you think that there's obviously monarchy and authoritarian type of, government is shunned in America, but that's a pretty well thought out argument, I believe. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so a monarchy by itself is not truly used a whole lot in the UK. Even with the king and the queen, they're borderline figureheads. They have a parliament, and one issue with their parliament, they'll have like 11 different parties, where we have the two main parties. So the People's House, the House of Reps, vote them in for 2 years, and if you don't like them, get them out. And most people tend to like their jobs. And when they're pulling in, gosh, it was $179,000 a year. I think it went up, but most people tend to love their jobs. And so the People's House, they're supposed to take care of their districts. And if they don't, vote them on out. And if your district is a bunch of idiots that only want talking points on Fox or CNN, I'll keep voting them back in. So I actually don't agree with the premise that people are only worried about spending the money as fast as they can in their 2 years. I believe this comment. People that run for the House of Representatives for 2 years, I do believe they have a genuine care for wanting to get in and do well. I believe most people care when they're running. I'm talking about their initial run. The problem is once you're in and you're surrounded and you start to learn the game, you start to learn the system, then you maybe lose some of your morals, some of your values. And then you start gaming the system and bringing money back home to the pork barrel. I don't know what the answer is, man. I like your argument. I like what you're talking about with Austria. I don't pretend to know what the solution is. Us having power is important. So whatever the solution is, I don't think people don't want to give up power. We need to be really careful with that one.
Let's keep there though. We mentioned Britain. They have their monarchy, but you said they have their parliament with maybe 10, 11 parties. I don't know either. Yeah. I don't know how many parties they have. Is that a viable option? 2 parties. A lot of people oppose that. They say it's the duopoly or whatever the word is. You think that's a viable option to have multiple parties?
I would love to see a third party come in. I would absolutely love it. And I think a lot of Americans would get down with that. If you start asking people and you really poll people, yeah, I'll bet you get a majority of Americans would be down with the third party system.
I would disagree because you mentioned it earlier. Nobody wants to vote for a loser. So
I'm sorry. So it's almost
that's why we don't have libertarians.
Yeah, it's almost like you're at the start line and you can see the finish line. At the start line is us today. The finish line is a third party system. Getting there, I don't know how we get there. But the end goal of having 3 major parties, that would be great. As far as getting there, man, I don't know what that path looks like.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say in the last 10 years, I've been more on the side of stop trying to vote in the right people. And if I'm gonna vote, I won't even say which way, but I'm gonna vote one way. From what I've said, you can probably guess what way that would be. Except I do try to go more libertarian. And I'm okay voting for a president saying I'm going to vote libertarian, knowing that there isn't a chance that person's gonna get in office. But I will do that. But I think if we want to really make a change, we have to start making a change in our own lives first. We have to stop looking for government to say, what can I do here? What can I do there? And take back a little bit of control. Stop relying on the government for everything. And I think it happens too often right now is, what can the government do for me? What can I get here? What can I get there? And say, you know what? I'm going to do what I can do. If I am poor, and I've been in this situation, I have been broke. I have never tried to look to the government. And I'm not saying that we can't use those safety nets. They're there for a reason. I think they're good. So if you are in need, use those. But I think too many people try to just jump on that bandwagon and say, I can get food stamps. If I do this, this, and this, I'm above that line where I'm not supposed to be getting them. But if I make a few changes, do something here, then I can get below that line and start getting all this free stuff. And my opinion is, no, if I'm broke, a bag of seeds at the right time of year is going to give me a lot more food. So I'm going to do what I can do and not have to rely on the government. So I think if we can look at and make changes in ourselves and rely on the government less, that's going to solve a lot more problems.
You sound like Ralph Waldo Emerson, the individual, the individualist. I love it. Okay, that's a great transition. So you guys work pretty often, or some of y'all's work is helping teenagers become adults, transition out of the home. What are some of the things that you guys like to talk about with those teenagers and parents?
Yeah, so the way this started out of these 16 things was mostly just on hard skills like cooking, finances, self-defense. And I mean, think about it now, I guess even when I graduated college, I'm 41 now. So we're looking at 18 years ago or so. I was, I'm 40. I turned 41 here in a couple weeks. So, but if I look back at, when I went off to college, and I didn't know how to cook a lot, but I would go my junior, senior year when I'm living off campus, and my roommates would have no idea how to cook. I mean, they would struggle to do a frozen pizza. And I have family members now that struggle to cook anything but that frozen meal. Whereas Luke and I can tell you, both of our kids, and our kids are real good friends, so they come over, they may cook us a meal without us even asking. And so that's a big thing just to be able to function on your own. And then, finances, you get out of school, it's like, awesome. I got this job. I'm making 60 grand. So I can afford a brand new car at 20 grand. I can buy a house for $200,000. And as long as I can afford those payments, I'm good to go. And we want to get kids thinking, can you actually do that? And what happens later on? What happens if you lose that job in 18 months? You're going to have a little bit of a nest egg to float yourself for a little while instead of, crumbling right there. So we do a lot of that, a lot of hard skills. And then Luke can talk about some of the other things along with self-defense. I mean, Luke in his military experience, was it, I think the Army National Guard, he taught karate or something. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, he knows I have to joke in. I have to come in. So in 2009, I went through Army's drill sergeant school. So I was a drill instructor for 2 years. And the school, to become that, we learned modern Army combatives. It was a 1-week course, and it was jiu-jitsu at its base. And I started going through I went through all the levels. I've been teaching it for a while. So as Brian and I were talking about this website, I'm thinking, how do I talk to my kids about this? So picture this very real scenario. My oldest daughter's 13, Brian's is 14. So imagine I have both these girls sitting at the dining room table, and our website, every single topic is designed. Pull your child very intentionally to that dining room table, intentionally have a conversation. Let me come back to self-defense in one moment. Your 2-year-old, Lee, eventually is going to need to know how to tie shoes. And this hit me yesterday. We're getting ready to go somewhere, and I have a 3-year-old, and she's struggling, a 4-year-old struggling. And I'm thinking, when I'm trying to leave the house, is not the time I want to teach my kid to tie shoes because I'm trying to leave the house. I'm probably in a hurry somewhere. My patience is gone. But if I would intentionally teach my children these things at other times, they are set up for success when they need it. And that is a very basic concept. So I have my 13-year-old daughter, Brian's 14-year-old daughter there at the table. And I said, girls, imagine you're walking around Indianapolis, 10 o'clock at night for whatever reason. You're on one side of the sidewalk. On the other side of the street, on the other sidewalk, 3 guys kind of like me. You're never going to meet them. That's not the point. Point is there are 3 guys, 220 pounds, 5'10", and lurking behind a street corner or behind a building is a predator of some sort. Maybe he wants to sexually assault you. Maybe he just wants to mug you. Which set of people would that person probably try to assault? And it's the people that are probably going to become targets. It's not their fault, but the people that are going to become targets, well, we need to teach them some things. So self-defense is on. There's not just physical self-defense. There are other manners. One of them, because we're talking about culture, is how do we teach our kids that when they leave the house to truly take a stance for what matters? So imagine any 3 of us, one of our kids, they're 18, they leave the house and they go to college or they go to the workforce. And Lee, will stick with the name Billy. They're talking to your poor kid, Billy. That'd be funny if your kid's name is Billy. They said, Billy, why do you go to church? Now imagine that's your kid that you took 18 years and you raised with the faith. You thought you did, no matter what that faith is. And you think your kid is rooted in that faith. They go to college. They said, Billy, why are you a Buddhist? Why are you Muslim? Why? And the worst two answers you can ever want your kid to say. Number one is, I don't know. Boom, it all crumbles. And number two is, I don't know, my dad just brought me. It all crumbles because we're not challenging them at the house. So what Brian has put together, we have these newsletters. Here's somebody goes to the website, put in your email address, just get some weekly newsletters. And this week, we're talking about standing against culture, teaching your kids how to stand against some of these things that are going to beat you down. So that's kind of what the website's about.
Man, it sounds like you guys are doing good work. Let's go back to finance for a second. So you guys are teaching how to save a little bit. It sounds like you guys are saying, hey, it may not always be there, that job, that income to pay all those payments. I would think the other piece to that is always investing in yourself, right? I think that the growth that you can take and grow yourself to be an individual that can pivot, that doesn't get that doesn't lose just because they lost a job. They acquired skills, specific skills that maybe they were born with and they make better, or maybe they obtain. So is that something you guys talk about, or anything on that?
Yeah. So first of all, we're pretty new to this, and we've only put out, we're on our third or fourth week of lessons total, third week. And so we haven't gotten into every topic, but we will eventually talk about as much as we possibly can. It may take years to get to, because when we do talk about a topic, we like to break it down to a very small portion of that topic in general. So we won't just do, this week is on finances. And it won't be all finances. We'll cover a specific portion of that, or even just budgeting, something like that. But as far as investing in yourself, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think Luke can, with all those books back there behind him, that he agrees in investing in himself. So we're always trying to teach our kids to not just the skills, but and not just how to cook and how to do things, but how to be smarter, how to educate yourself, how to learn independently so you can educate yourself eventually. So, but we're big on reading books that teach us a skill, or, everything like that. So yeah, we're definitely into that, investing in ourselves.
And Lee, you brought up,
go ahead.
Yeah, you brought up what happens when you lose a job. So this is a great example in that tying the shoe. When the moment arises, then we talk to our kids. And this is most of parenting. Most things. When a situation arises, we deal with it. A bully hit our kid at school. Okay, we deal with it when it happens. Whatever the thing is, but rarely, I believe this, rarely do we as parents think ahead and say, I need to talk to my kids about this before the television does, before their friends do, before the teachers do. Right? So let's talk about losing a job. I like this. We're going to use this, Lee. So yeah, I mean, if I lose a job, then if my kids are at the house, then I can pull them into the living room, share how I'm processing, tell them what my next steps are, and they can watch me through it. But I mean, unless we are very intentional about that, our kids are going to leave the house. And they'll be 21 or 22. They're going to get fired. And they're going to have to learn to process it on their own without anybody to turn to. And there are plenty of substances to turn to when you don't know where else to go to. Plenty of addictions, plenty of wrong vices. Or we can learn to keep our head up and not down and recognize, there's another job probably next door that needs me. Let me just focus. But I love that topic. Let's teach them this thing before they need to know how to use the thing. That's the concept of all of this.
Right. So you're instilling understanding, not just, what to do, what not to do. So you're giving them understanding, but you as a parent, you guys are being intentional, right? I'm intentionally, going to show you how to tie your shoe before you need to. I'm intentionally going to build the defense of your values and your faith before you need it. I'm intentionally going to do all these things to to build a strong human, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's 100%. So we want to have that conversation before they need it. So when that time comes, they're not panicking. They're not flipping out, going crazy. They know, oh yeah, Luke and Brian, as our kids or whatever, my kids, Brian, dad taught me this, to do this in this situation. Same thing with Luke's kids. And that's what we're trying to share with everyone else. And with that, we're not saying that we are these, we're just the best dads in the world and our kids are the smartest and they're perfect. We're growing right alongside with, as we do these lessons, as we're writing them out, we do them with our kids as well. So our kids do know some of those skills like cooking. My 14-year-old can go cook for a week if we asked her to. But there's other skills that she does not know. So, and we're doing these right alongside with you guys.
Nice. You guys are doing good work. So I want to transition again into your other half, probably your better half. How is this working with homeschooling? Tell me, is mom the teacher, or do you hire a curriculum and all that? Or Brian, for you, how does it work? How does homeschool work?
Yeah, so my wife does it all. She's a rock star when it comes to that. And until next year, and I'll get into that in just a second, but we started out, I was not on board for homeschooling when we started out, and we sent our daughter to a preschool. And my wife said, hey, I'm going to homeschool kindergarten, which is pretty simple, really. But she's like, I want to see how it's going to work out. Worked out really well. So now my daughter just the next year continued on into first grade. So she's a grade ahead. All the other kids are, we knew it was going to work out. So they're at the level they're supposed to be, as according to their age. But she does it all. So she does that. And until next year, we have another one hitting preschool. And my 14-year-old wants to homeschool him. So obviously it's going to happen in our home in a controlled setting. But that's one of our things, is how to teach others. We didn't even have to ask her to do this. And of course, she wants something for that. So the kids are going to go to a camp this summer. She asked if we would pay for it if she homeschools our son, our youngest, all of next year at preschool. And so she's going to get that experience of teaching someone else as a then 14 to 15-year-old. She's going to get that experience. So my wife will get a little bit of help there.
Well-oiled machine.
It is. Yes.
How capitalism? She's already like, yeah, I need something for it though. I'm trying to go to camp, right?
Yep. She's a negotiator. Yes.
Hey, skill you might need to help her grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are you 7 or 8 kids?
I'm just 7. 8 is ridiculous.
Okay, you're 7. Yeah, you're one less. He's the ridiculous one with 8. Wild.
Yep.
So 7 kids, all being homeschooled except for the 2 that are underage, but one of them's going to be, needing a teacher. And the oldest daughter, is that right, is going to be the one?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. The 14-year-old daughter, Michaela, she's going to be the one that she wants to teach the boy preschool next year. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So what about the curriculum? How did you obtain it online through an organization? How'd that work?
Yeah. So with homeschooling, Luke and I are big proponents of this. And every time we talk to somebody, we tell them you work the homeschooling curriculum, the program around what you want. So you can do anything from the kids take every single class online with a teacher. It's just like going to school, except you're sitting at home. All the way to the kids learn 100% on their own. There's not even any books. So there's a thing called unschooled, where you go to the library. If the kid wants to learn math that day, they learn math. If they want to stick to anything outside of a typical school subject, they can do that. And there's every single step in between, every level that you can get to. So what we've done is my wife just found a couple different curriculums online, and she ordered all the books, and she works through that. We do not do a co-op right now. We have in the past, but right now, no co-op. But the kids are involved in a lot of different activities and sports and things. So they get out of the house. Plus, they have lots of friends here at home because there's 7 kids. here. So that's what we do. Just buy a curriculum and work through that.
Perfect. So with unschooling, there's no grades, right? That's what it sounds like. There's no grading system or anything like that.
I have to be honest. I knew a family that I think they were doing that for a little while, but they were geniuses. These kids are going to grow up and be literally like they could be rocket scientists, and they had no issue doing that for a little while. I don't think they do that anymore, but I don't know a lot about unschooling. Yeah, not sure.
Luke, you have something to add? I can tell.
When I was stationed in Hawaii, good friends of ours, they tried unschooling for a little bit, and they fell behind. Like they fell almost 2 years behind, all 5 of those kids. But it wasn't because of the process. It was because the one parent that was staying home, gosh, maybe one day she'll be listening to this. I don't know. She had vices, and that prevented her from being more involved. So this is really important to talk about. Somebody homeschools. The reason why they're homeschooling matters, but if you're not careful with it, and if you're not intentional, and like our website is all about being intentional. And if you're not intentional with homeschooling, yeah, your kids could fall behind. But if you are truly intentional, this is not my kid versus anyone else's kid, right? This is nothing like that. But my 8th grader, she's finishing Algebra 2 next month. I got to say, it's not because of me. It's not because of her. But seriously, kids win given time to work on a subject that they are good at. And for her, it's math, right? It's not English. She's okay, but it's math. And this allows someone to really flourish in that. So imagine a 9th grader about to take pre-calc and trig. Everything else is on level, right? Everything else is. But there's that one subject area that kids thrive in. But I can tell you in a public school setting, it's tough in those classrooms. You can have a 50-minute classroom or 50-minute class, and 25 to 30 minutes of it is classroom management. Hey, get off your cell phone. Hey, take your earbuds out. Hey, stop doing this. Hey, do this. A kid wants to be disruptive and disrespectful. You got to get someone to pull the kid out, and you lose all this time. And all the kids are watching this. So when your kid comes home and say, "What'd you learn today?" "Oh, no." They might be telling the truth. They really might be telling the truth.
So me and my wife have been having discussions. It's a little early. We don't know exactly what we're going to do just yet. We're still sorting out the idea of public, private, charter, homeschool, right? One of the things that I like about homeschool is I felt like in school it was so industrialized that I'm like, man, we're just gonna teach them to be an employee, and I feel like that encroaches on critical thinking. And I was a part of it. I had to grow myself out of it after the fact, and I'm like, man, we could avoid that. But you know what everybody's defense is for public school? How are they going to learn to be social?
Yeah,
right.
I don't know if you caught it from
for me, that's not even an issue. Like chess class or chess club, baseball, golf, any extracurricular activity is going to socialize a person. You know, that to me, taking them out in public and teaching them the right way to discourse with people, you know, all those normal things that people do.
You know, I feel like, Lee, every day, if I turn on the news, based on where you go to your news, of course, but certain news outlets, they're going to let you know what's going on in school districts across America. Girl committed suicide after bullying. Girl this, kid this, sexual assault this, rape that. And I'm watching this. I'm thinking, okay, I know that I was the product of public school. 3 years in Hawaii, 1 in California. I lived. But just because we did something in the past, and this is philosophy here, just because something was done in the past does not make it okay now. An extreme example, just because my dad hit my wife, my mom, doesn't mean I should hit my wife. That's an extreme example. Just because someone else did something doesn't make it okay. Things have changed since we have finished high school drastically. I mean, the slope on this thing of change is absolutely insane. And this morning, I was reading an article out of Massachusetts, a superintendent now. So we hear about these moms and dads going in front of school board meetings, and they got this nasty, raunchy book pulled out of some library. And it's usually elementary, middle school. These books are talking about for elementary kids now, how to take nude selfies and work on the filters before you send them out to the internet. This is in elementary school. How to have anal sex, how to go online and go find the type of porn that you want. This is elementary and middle school. And as parents, you can't read this as a one-off because it's again and again and again. Okay, so Massachusetts, a book like that was read at a board meeting. The superintendent, of course, had to react to that. The superintendent read through it and is on record for saying it's going back in the library. It's going word for word. It's going, I read it's going back in the library. In other words, these superintendents, I'm not saying they're the enemy, they're the friend, but you know who's got my kids' best interests at heart? Me. I have my best kids' interests at heart. There may be some good educators out there, but if those good educators share morals like I do, they probably are not allowed to share those kind of morals. I'm literally sending my kids to go be taught morals and values I disagree with. Not just math, not just how to read. They're being taught morals and values. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Values should be taught at the home, hopefully, by mother and father. I would find it a stretch to find that in Texas, which is where I am, Fort Worth, Texas. Just from our voting habits, and a lot of people in Texas are pretty conservative. So I would find it a stretch to say that it's going that far here, but it could get there for sure.
That's right.
And I'm keeping my eye on.
Yes.
I'm keeping my eye on it. Right. So real quick, one last topic before I let you guys go. Luke, does your wife teach homeschool for you or for your family?
She does. I will help with the upper level math. I will help edit all of the writing because the kids are writing essays. So I'm the editor. But my wife, just like Brian, these kids are on autopilot. They know when they get up, when breakfast is done, a lot of them are starting their school while eating breakfast with music playing on Alexa. They're after it. By noon, maybe 1 o'clock, they're done for the day and then some. They're going to bed asking, Dad, can I do my fix-it grammar for tomorrow? Sweetie, it's 8:30 at night. What are you talking about? So my wife runs the show. I just do the editing on essays and the help with upper level math.
So is it maybe hybrid or almost a self-taught system, and you have a manager, which is your wife? Is that almost what you're going for? Or, it sounds like if they're already getting up and starting to do the curriculum on their own, really, they're self-teaching almost.
Yeah. So for me, and Luke can explain for him, but for me, it is kind of like that. But again, you can choose whatever works for your family. You can choose, again, that your wife can do every bit of the teaching, or the kids can do it all themselves and just ask questions. And similar to Luke, my 14-year-old especially, and now my 12-year-old is getting into that some, where I wake up in the morning, and if I sleep in a little bit, I walk out to the kitchen and they're both sitting there with their books, getting through their work. And then again, if they have questions, and I think for them, my kids, there are certain subjects where they need more help than others. So they'll knock out the subjects they can easily do, and then maybe ask the questions to my wife once she's in there teaching all the kids and getting that going. So
interesting. And y'all's spouse, their happiness level, are they pretty happy with the lives they've chosen?
I think so, yes. There has been times I get frustrated at work or something, and I tell my wife jokingly that it's never going to happen, but I say, you know what, why don't you go get a job and I'll stay here and teach kids. And I think she's very happy teaching the kids. With homeschool, there's a lot of freedom. And, if you're done in 4 hours a day, obviously she still manages the house. She does everything else. So it's not like from noon till when I get home, she just does whatever she wants. There's still cleaning things to do, but there's a lot of freedom when she can take the kids out for lunch if she wants to. She could take them to the roller skating rink or go to see friends, go to the park in the summertime, do whatever. And I think she enjoys that freedom.
Yes. And so on my end, I agree. My wife is happy. She'll tell you, but it's got to be a joint decision. There should anyone listening, Men, don't you dare try to push this on a spouse. Please don't. You are pushing a life on someone else, a work, if you will. You're pushing employment onto a spouse. It has to be all in from both. And if not, it's just not the right time. It's not. It's just not the right time. But Brian's wife has a bachelor's degree teaching a math. She's a math teacher. My wife has a degree in interior design. They both could be doing other things, but they both decided that raising a family and spending that time is really important. And I really agree.
Yeah, I would definitely have to seek a different avenue. My wife is career driven. We worked that out together. I knew that when I married her, and we have a little bit of a different relationship than most conservative people do in Texas, honestly. We're both got, pretty decent careers. Therefore, how are we going to make this work? And I feel like we're doing a good job. We're both pretty happy. But yeah, Luke, Brian, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate you guys being on the Dad Hat. And man, I think we should do it again. What do y'all think?
Let's do it. Thank you for having us. Yeah, this has been awesome.
Yeah, pick a topic, man. Let's go.
All right. Guys, you guys have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, brother.